Something that girls get that boys don't get are breasts. And so it becomes a very sexualized focus in a lot of cultures and in the West in general. Dads begin to kind of pull away from their daughters. And as you know, that story that I had of where I witnessed a great big dad who gave the most awkward goodbye hug when he dropped his daughter off, at middle school.
Welcome to the Empowering Choices podcast. My name is Joshua.
I am Lucas.
And I'm Erik.
Eric and Lucas are licensed professional counselors, and today we're talking about 5 common mistakes that dads make with their teenage daughters.
Kind of. That's like the mini-series title, right?
Yes,
and then this is episode 1 of our...
One of 5.
Yeah. So Eric, what was the impetus for you looking up a bunch of parenting mistakes? I suppose we needed material for the podcast in general, right?
Well, what I was looking for is what are parents struggling with in our culture today? Running across some of these, different bits of information as to, what's out there about thoughts about what, dads or moms are doing wrong. And it's really not meant to be doing wrong. It's just here's some mistakes that, we're making as adult parents that, we may not know why we're making them or that we're making these mistakes. But we're sensing that something's not going right in our relationship with our kid.
I suppose we could change the language to all of our stuff of 5 ways to do better with your teen daughters or something.
Or 5 ways that help dads grow closer to their teen daughters.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So we have point 1 here, disengaging physically, as our, point 1 of 5. And again, I don't remember which podcast we probably shared this story on before, but this particular story that you shared of a dad who was disengaging from his teenage daughter and how that damaged their relationship is the thing that I think of when you kind of bring this point up.
Something that girls get that boys don't get are breasts. And so it becomes a very sexualized focus in a lot of cultures and in the West in general. Dads begin to kind of pull away from their daughters. And as you know, that story that I had of where I witnessed a great big dad who gave the most awkward goodbye hug when he dropped his daughter off, at middle school that I had ever seen. You could just tell that it's he doesn't know how to hug his daughter. He has no clue. And when he and I talked about that a little bit, he was like, ever since she had breast development, I don't know how to touch her. I don't want people to think that I'm a child molester, which was just, that blew my mind away right there, that dads were struggling with this with their daughters. And, so then we began to talk about, how can you actually hug your daughter, to where, you're not going to feel her chest. And I shared with him that you could lean in your upper body and then she would match, and, you would virtually not be able to, feel her breasts in any way, shape, or form. And I encouraged him to, practice that with his wife, but let his wife know
what he was doing.
What he was doing.
Honey, I'm doing this for a reason here.
Because it's very appropriate for him to hug his wife differently.
Right.
And he, I saw him, I think it was a week later. Because one of the things that we talked about is that he was like, no, it's no big deal. It's no big deal. It's, you're just
watching it from a distance going, this is obviously...
This was horrible for both of them, because you could tell the look on her face was just riddled with what the heck has happened and what did I do?
With hurt.
Yeah. And so when I shared that with him, he goes, no, she's not feeling that. She doesn't think I'm rejecting her. Well, he did go home and he did share with his wife, our conversation. And she said that was good that you shared that before you started hugging me differently.
Sure, you let people know what's happening here.
Right, because she shared, I would have thought you were rejecting me and pulling away.
Oh, wow.
And then she began to talk about her own, development into being a woman, and how her dad pulled away from her and just completely stopped touching her in the normal ways that he had done her whole life, and how it left her confused, and it left her feeling like she had done something wrong and she was being rejected. And then when she realized, okay, I'm not being rejected, but suddenly it became bad to be a woman because it eliminated, the physical affection that she needed as a girl, as a woman growing up. And then I think his wife actually went and talked to their daughter, and she was feeling the exact same thing. And so then he began to practice that style of hugging with his wife. And next time I saw him, he gave her a great big hug, and you could just see when they both separated that it was different. It was back to that close, affectionate relationship.
Right, because that's the thing that you're talking about is like you should have a close, affectionate relationship with all of your children, but then we're talking about dads and daughters, and then like, how puberty can throw a wrench,
huge wrench
into that, and then how do you, react? Because I think you hit the nail on the head of like this dad's like, well, I don't want to be accused of being a child molester,
right?
Because that's the irrational fear that is that dads are trying to avoid there. But then, it leads to some consequences.
Well, and God help the man that would accuse that man of being a child molester.
Sure, right? Well, I think
he was huge and a 20-year Marine veteran.
I think the comment you said that he shared with you, if someone had accused him of that, was that he would break them in half.
Right on the spot.
Right.
He didn't even skip a beat with that. He was just like, no, I'll break him in half. And I'm like, see how quickly you said that? He goes, oh, yeah.
But that was the thing he was afraid of.
But that was the thing he was afraid of.
He was somehow afraid of that thing, but when you like literally put it in front of him, he was like, no.
Yeah. No, it was never going to happen. And the thing that I wanted, to kind of focus on, with our podcast is in this culture, there is this fear that's there, and you may not even know you have it as a dad. You treated your girls just the same as you treated your boys. And then they began to hit puberty, and suddenly it was hands off, and girls derive so much of their security and their personality from their relationship with their fathers. They derive a huge part of what is it, to be a woman, and is it okay? And it's in that combination. And when we pull back, then it sends the message that it's not okay, that being a woman is bad, and that this different development that happens between men and women, makes them ostracized.
Well, and that's kind of that experience that I've heard a lot of people talk about is whatever experience that you have about getting talked about the birds and the bees, whether it's, like it's health class and they separate the boys from the girls, right?
Or not.
Well, yeah. So the experience that I'm thinking of is when they do, and like the message that the boys get are like, all right, guys, get excited. Things are going to get cool. Right. And then like the girls get this message of like, oh man, ladies, like things are going to get crappy. And there's this like, I've heard that from multiple people. Let's say that.
Yeah.
And the tone of how puberty is like described to boys versus girls. You were talking about like girls don't feel like being a woman is okay, or it's scary, or I don't want these changes, or can I go back, or bad things are going to happen, and so we're just talking about how like that affects parenting.
Well, I have two really close friends who are adult women, and they both talked about, when their breast development began, that suddenly there's this training bra thing that they have to wear, and they were both just furious that they had to wear this. And one of them said, because she has an older brother and a younger brother, and she's like, they don't have to wear it. Why do I? And I think she didn't talk to her parents, especially her mom, for like a month,
because she was mad.
Because she was mad. Why is this that, I'm being singled out?
Right. Felt like punishment.
It was
felt
like a punishment feeling.
That same tone of like puberty is going to bring things with it that are like bad.
Rather than there's a beauty of being a woman, because that same way, hey guys, things are going to get really cool. Hey girls, things are going to get really cool.
Sure.
You know?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why is there this undertone of badness?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I feel like when I was in school, I think our guys like sex ed thing was like one session and the girls had like 3 and they all looked very unhappy.
And they all looked very unhappy.
Yeah.
Yeah. The same. Yeah. It's
Right. And I think one of the things that is interesting, so I'm in this like dads group on one of the social media platforms. And so I often enjoy just reading when people ask questions and then trying to read through the answers. And it's surprising to me, see this quite a bit where someone will say, hey, I'm struggling with figuring out how, like, and it always is like things were fine. And it's just like what you're saying until puberty. And then it's like, I don't know how to hug them. I don't know how affectionate to be. I don't know, and then when I read the responses, it is very fascinating because I typically find that there's people who are just kind of in the same boat and then the relationship sounds kind of rocky and they're not sure. And then most of the people who are like, hey, hug your daughters. Don't be afraid, blah, blah, blah. They're like, and I have a great relationship with my daughters and they're, and so, but it is fascinating because it does seem to be a very common thing. And in this group, you can post anonymously and almost all of those are posted anonymously. So it's also like
that particular topic is never
right. So it's also like
name.
a thing that people, maybe don't want to ask about, which is great that we're talking about it here.
To answer some of those questions, how affectionate do you be? Be as affectionate as you always have been. If you're an affectionate person, be affectionate. If you're trying to work with how do I handle this, talk to your wife, talk to your girlfriend, connect together and be able to go over that subject, because they're going to have some insights, right? And they'll be able to help you. I hate that in our commercials, even now, we have like 8-year-old boys who are being taught side hug time. It's just all side hug time. And I'm like, why are we giving that message?
What's the messaging? Is that's how you're supposed to hug your kids?
Now it's time for side hugs and it's coming from the parent, or it's coming, the parent, it's teaching the kid also how you're going to get hugs for the rest of your life.
Okay. Just everything.
Everything is just, going to be a side hug. And it's because when boys are starting to get to realize that there are differences between a man's body and a woman's body, then yes, they're going to notice that, okay, they have breasts. And so that commercial that I was referring to seems to allude that, oh, okay, moms now need to give side hugs to their boys rather than frontal hugs. I don't remember a frontal hug from my mom where I ever thought about, oh, I'm touching her breasts.
Right.
Ever.
Yeah.
I think it's being so sexualized that it's polluting the natural blood bond ick factor that's there with a human being. I mean, you're not thinking about that.
Right.
As a parent, this is your blood, this is your child. And so we're making it get in there in ways that it doesn't naturally happen.
Right.
Well, kind of ironically, like if you did end up pushing that message of like, oh, we're going to do side hugs, and you'd be like, okay, well, why?
Right.
You're almost like,
right.
The intention is to reduce the sexuality of the thing.
But then
if the kid,
weird.
Well, but then it makes it sexual. Because the reason why is because it's like you're almost like, yeah. In the name of reducing sexuality or increasing.
Yeah, and this is like I've seen even there's like a little bit of a movement of like asking your child's permission to change their diaper. Like when they're really little, like,
when they're 2, that's
I'm now
not...
going to change your diaper. Are you okay with that? And it's kind of
what
like
if the answer's
them.
no?
I know. And but once again, it's like,
because I know with my kid, the answer's no on a regular basis.
It's like there are things that don't have to be weird and won't be weird until you bring your own stuff into it and then do that. And then as a child, I can't imagine if I was being told all those things, I wouldn't know what to do. As where not being told those things, none of that was ever weird. Any family hugging me, I was never thinking that. I'm just glad to get a hug from whoever it is. It was not that at all.
No, you don't think about that.
Yeah.
And it's that has gotten in there and polluted the water. And now it's going, because that's the first that I had heard about the whole diaper thing. Do I have permission? this is lunacy.
Yeah.
Because a kid doesn't know, like you said, my kids are going to say no.
Right. It's like, well, then you're really up a creek.
Right. And this is a Newsweek article. Ask your baby's permission before changing their diapers, says sexual consent expert.
Why do we have sexual consent experts talking about babies?
I don't know.
Why do we have sexual consent expert talking about changing diapers?
Right.
It's not a part of anything sexual. It's about cleanliness. I mean,
there's poop involved.
And
last
pee.
I checked.
And if you don't clean,
the health issue.
Yeah, then you get your babies taken away.
Yeah.
Sure you can.
And they can get extremely sick.
Yeah.
There are things that we're just turning into lunacy here. And that's one of them. Because again, a sexual expert, that's not who I'm talking to about that. I'm talking to a doctor.
Yeah.
Not like an MD doctor.
Right.
Not about that.
Yeah. And in many cases, our doctor has said when we're like, well, he really doesn't want to do this, you have to do it. Like it's for his own good.
Sure,
of course,
like
he doesn't want to brush his
diaper,
teeth.
yeah.
He may not want to change it. You do that because that's what love is, and that's what you do. You can't ask a child some of these things because you'll never do it.
And then you're also giving a very small child authority over you that seems inappropriate. Like it's like I can tell mommy no about things that like we know are health and safety issues.
Right. And
that just seems like an inappropriate place
I think
of
how
authority.
some of this is being framed. So like in this article, there's a quote that says, in empowering children with their rights while educating families and professionals, the burden of responsibility is placed squarely on adults to protect children. They're kind of going with this whole idea that if you don't do these things, you may be setting your child up to be a victim of sexual abuse. So from a very early age, you need to teach them about consent, and even as a parent, get consent to, but if you leave a space and wait for body language and wait to make eye contact when you're letting that child know that their response matters. And this is once again talking about like changing the diaper and stuff.
The whole premise of if you don't ask permission, you're setting them up for sexual abuse is stupid.
Yeah.
Yes, we don't want our children to be sexually abused. Let's make that clear.
Correct. So when the teacher in the 3rd grade asks if they can change your diaper, then you can teach them say no, but they won't be in diapers.
Right.
Who's going to have the access to them, while they're in diapers.
Right.
And, the idea is that everybody who touches them has to have permission.
Yeah.
It's not going to work the way you think because bad guys don't operate that way.
Right.
They find ways around those things. So making parents feel like they have to ask their kids permission to do the things that keep them healthy and safe is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then, to bring it back to what, we were talking about here, the culture is making dads feel as if they are, a predator for simply wanting to continue to love their daughters in the way they always have, which is natural, which is affectionate, which is loving, which kids and human beings need.
Yeah.
So hug your daughters.
Yeah.
Continue to touch your daughters. Play with your daughters. If there's changes that you're feeling that you're uncomfortable with as a father, talk to your wife, girlfriend, sister, mother. Bring that in and see what you can do to handle that and manage that so that you can continue to have a good, close relationship with your daughter because she needs that. She needs to be able to come home and talk to you about what the boys are thinking and what the boys are doing and saying and what the girls are, their perspective is. And she needs your man's fatherly way of thinking to be able to help form the defenses to where she doesn't get hurt.
Yeah. And from her perspective, she's going through all these changes, which is hard. And then at the same time, without understanding why, dad's pulling away. And that just adds to it. Have you ever seen, or is it a thing, I imagine somewhere out there, where is it ever a time that the daughter is going through those changes and then that causes her to pull away in that way? I mean, is that a thing?
I'm not going to say that it's not a thing.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that personally. But I'm not going to say it couldn't happen.
Yeah.
And the biggest defender against things like that is the closeness of the relationship of the parents to the child.
Right.
And so that would be a place where a mom might go, hey, what's going on?
Yeah.
hey, something's different. What's making you pull back now? I could imagine that dads are getting these messages on one side. Kids may be getting messages on a completely different level that are trying to pull them away from parents. I remember having a parent that came in. I think I saw them first, and they were talking about, we have a pretty good relationship with our son, and, things have been good, but now he's a teenager, and, he's not supposed to want to hang around his parents anymore, and I guess he's about to become rebellious, and, so...
Just self-prophesying that whole thing.
We're not sure what to expect, but we're kind of trying to get ready, and I'm like, that's interesting. Then the son came in, and he goes... Yeah, I hear that now I'm a teenager. I'm not supposed to like to spend time with my parents, and I'm supposed to be rebellious and create a whole bunch of problems and things.
So they were both just like reading the news and saying, I guess this is just going to happen.
Well, and here's the killer part. He goes, I actually like spending time with my parents.
They're like pretty okay.
I don't want to stop.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, you two got to get together.
Sure, right.
And, and I got them together, and, and it was enlightening to both of them, the parents and the child, that they actually liked each other. Now, not that they thought their kid hated them, or that he thought his parents hated him, but they're like, wait, you like playing board games? I mean, you're a teenager. And he's like, yeah, I'd rather do that than a whole lot of stuff with my friends. So there's all kinds of, bad ideas that are coming from all types of levels. And the key is, what's your relationship like with your kids? And how are you being able to tell more and more when something is being flipped in their arena, and the effect that it may be having on them?
I'm ironically thinking of Dr. Benjamin Spock, who opened his book by saying, you know more than you think you do.
Yep.
And like some of these examples are people seeing things that are like, oh, well, I guess this is supposed to happen now because someone told me so.
Yeah.
And, admittedly, we're a person telling you so. But one of the things that we're recommending is that, like, remain engaged with your kids. And I don't think that fundamental piece of information is going to go out of style anytime soon.
Well, if we go back to this diaper thing, just because you hear something from an expert, if it doesn't seem like it really lines up with, how you see life as a person and a parent, don't give them more credit simply because they're an expert. Even the ideas that we're putting out here, I mean, these are springboards. And take it for what it's worth. If it's not worth, if you can't find value in it, don't listen. Don't take it, But if you can find some things that we talk about that might help you in your parenting, or they help, kind of germinate some different things that you haven't thought about before that now you're thinking about, and you just go to the next levels, and this was just a springboard, use it that way.
It's that problem we run into as counselors sometimes, where we'll kind of bat ideas about with clients, and then they'll come back the next week and go, I did what you told me to. And it's like, no. This was supposed to be like a brainstorming session where you could kind of take what I talked about or not, or take it somewhere else.
Right.
Don't like take this as like the gospel truth, like everything we say.
Well, and I've had those sessions too, and they're like, yeah, this didn't work, and this didn't work, and this didn't work. I'm like, okay, what did?
Right, great.
Well, I started thinking about this, and then I used this, but I thought you'd be mad because that's not what we talked about.
You'd be mad.
I'm like, no, these are springboards, because, every kid is going to be different. And so you do know them best. You contributed half the DNA for their creation and development. There's a likelihood you might have a good inclination as to what they're going through.
Mm-hmm. Right. And it comes back to that, more than you think you do.
You know more than you think you do.
Yeah.
Well, make sure to like and subscribe so that you can hear the additional 4 pieces of this. And if you haven't yet done this, go to the App Store, search for Empowering Choices Parenting, where you can find our app. Go to empoweringchoices.community to learn more and see our courses, and we will see you on the next episode.
And if we get 1,000, what are they, followers on YouTube,
Sure.
I'll finally read that Benjamin Spock book.
Okay.
All
that
with
sounds
400 pages of it or something. Then I'll actually know what I'm talking about.